Hello everyone, and welcome to the Alder Hour, your new favourite way to end the working day. So it's 8 p.m. here in the UK. It's 9 p.m. in most of the rest of Europe. There are another couple of time zones there, but it's 9 p.m. in most of the rest of Europe, 3 p.m. on the East Coast, and midday on the West Coast. I'm Matt Alder from the Recruiting Future podcast, and I am also the host of the Alder Hour. This show is part of the Purple Acorn Network. If you want to find out more about Purple Acorn, head over to purpleacorn.io. At the end of the show, you can follow us on LinkedIn. This episode will also be available as a podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And it's the last show of the year. So if you're watching this live, please join in. We've got two great guests. We've got all kinds of things coming up, lots of really interesting topics, and it would be great to hear from you, hear your comments. So just type them in, and we'll try and read out as many as we can. And without further ado, I would like to introduce you to my co-host for today. So, hi Rhona, how are you doing?
Hey, Matt, I'm doing great. Excited to be here for the last show of the year.
Absolutely. Well, we'd normally have Jocelyn as well, but she can't. She can't make it today, so it's just us two. And how has your holiday season been going?
It's been super busy, but it's been great. How about yours?
Yeah, pretty good. Pretty good. Being European, it's not even halfway through yet. There's still more to come. And yeah, 2025 starts on Wednesday. Are you ready for 2025?
I am not, but I guess it's going to be here, so I better get ready.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So tell us a little bit more about what you're going to be talking about later in the show.
Oh, I'm talking about a topic that I love, just career prenups and why they're different now than what we've seen in the past.
Career prenups. I think that might be a whole new concept for a lot of people, but it's going to make for a great discussion. So brilliant to have you here again. If you're watching live, send us a comment. Let us know you're out there. And let's go straight to points and pints. Right. So if you've not seen this section of the show before, it's a section because it's the end of my working day. I'm going to open a beer and look at a couple of things that we've spotted in the headlines in the last week, and just give you a few thoughts on them. So, my beer of the week this week, I am on non-alcoholic again because I'm driving home because I had to bring a new computer into the office, which was very exciting. So I'm drinking Guinness Zero now. If you've never had Guinness Zero before and you like Guinness, you will love this because it's absolutely amazing. I don't know how they've done it, but I think it tastes better than Guinness. Now, pouring Guinness is always a bit of a quest. So let's see. Whoa, let's see if we can do this. So I don't have a pint glass, so it have to be the perfect half pint. Oh my goodness, this is why I don't work in a bar. Look at the state of that. So I'm gonna leave that to settle before I drink it. So let's get over to the first headline. So, the paradox of empowerment: is HR truly driving change? This is a really big topic. Essentially, what this article says is the paradox between companies saying that talent is the most important thing to them. It's critical to their business. It's critical to the business moving forward. So, talent is incredibly important. However, the way that they treat their HR departments in terms of not listening to them and cutting budgets is a paradox, but also the way that some HR departments behave in terms of, not being strategic, being kind of very admin and, admin kind of and compliance focused. Now, to caveat this, there are obviously lots of great HR departments and people working in HR who are doing amazing things and amazing strategic things. But it's really interesting that this is not the first article that I've seen like this in recent weeks. So all the great work that HR is doing strategically it's not changing that narrative. So that narrative is still very much, seeing HR as blockers, as administrative, as not, kind of not stepping up to the plate when it comes to the enormous changes that are going on, at work, with employers at the moment. And interestingly, in the episode of a Recruiting Future podcast that I published yesterday, we were looking at a survey that was looking at the misalignment between HR and the wider business that it works with. And I think they interviewed something like 1,700 HR directors, managers for this particular survey. And only 18% of them were fully aligned with the business objectives of the business that they work with, which is incredible when you think about it. So it's not just a paradox. There's this kind of real mismatch going on in terms of what's going on. And some of the kind of activities that this particular survey highlighted were collaborating with the C-suite, aligning talent strategy with business goals, as things that perhaps weren't happening in lots of organizations. And really, as we move into 2025 on Wednesday, I think this is just critical. I think it's going to be such an interesting year where AI is just the thing that people do. It changes everything. We've got some crazy kind of political times. We've got crazy economies. And I think it's, this misalignment needs to be fixed. Otherwise, I don't know what's going to happen. Rhona, what do you think? What do you think about this? Am I talking nonsense, or what do you think?
No, I fully agree. I think for so long we've been fighting for a seat at the table, and the few times that we actually get it, because I get it, we don't always get a seat at the table. I think we're so grateful, and I'm saying we, even though I don't consider myself to be one of these type of HR people. And like you said, there's lots of HR and TA folks who are strategic, who are aligned, who are speaking the language of the business. But I think a lot of us, when we get there, we're so grateful to be there that we're just like the yes people, and we're so like appreciative, and we'll do whatever. We really need to lean in 2025 into speaking the language of the business, knowing what's important and talking about that. Yes, the things that are important to you, you will get done, but you have to speak about the things that are important to the business. You have to align yourself with this. It's just where we're going. The days of being this transactional yes person and caring about the people are gone. I'm not saying stop caring about people. I'm saying stop only talking about how much you care about people.
Yeah, and I just think that I just think it's the last chance, because I think that it just other parts of the business are going to dictate the strategy around talent and humans and all of that kind of stuff. And I think if you look at the transformation functions like marketing have made in the last 10 years to be that strategically important to the business, it's that type of transformation is what HR needs to do, and there's not much time left to do it. So Wednesday 2025, it's gonna be interesting. Let's look at the next one, because I think it's another fascinating topic. So AI predictions. Now, the world is full of AI predictions at the moment. It's all people want to talk about. What's really interesting about this is their predictions are kind of based around. You see a lot of talk around this in the tech press and the general press at the moment. So it's things like, has AI development hit the wall because they've run out of languages to ingest and there's issues with power and all those kind of things? Will there be a killer app for AI, the one thing that makes everyone kind of adopt it? And will the stock market investment continue? I think that all of that is a complete red herring when it comes to talent acquisition and HR, because the technology that's needed to totally change the way that all works is already here. It's already here. Things like automation, things like interview intelligence, already here, already useful, already being used, and already being used in certain parts of the labor market. So I think that sometimes people can look at articles like this, which is completely legitimate. It's talking about some very legitimate concerns and things like that. But it's kind of irrelevant because everything that needs to be invented and go mainstream to kind of turn HR and talent acquisition on its head is already with us. I think the killer app thing is interesting as well, because is there a killer AI app, or is AI just in everything that we use? Is that the killer app? The fact it's just there. It's going to be this kind of invisible, this kind of invisible force that sits behind everything. Rhona, what do you think about this one?
I think it's the year of user adoption. That's really what we need to be focusing on. Like tech, there will always be new things. Yeah, maybe there's a killer app that will happen. Our job really in TA and HR, we don't really need to be worrying and focusing on that. We need to embrace what's already here and start using it. I think that's really what we need to do. And we also need our friends in HR tech to push us towards using what they've already included and stop doing the whole, this is the new AI thing that you need. It's like, no, this is what we have now. Like you said, everything that we need, as far as from where I can see, is already in existence. And I'll probably eat those words in a couple of months when they do the new big thing. But right now we need to focus on user adoption, just like start using the stuff.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I think there are some really interesting things coming with AI agents and the way that things work together. I think that a lot of the vendors out there have got some great tech and some great ideas in terms of things that are changing. But I think the trouble is, lots of people still see generative AI as chat GPT that can write LinkedIn posts for me that all sound the same. And it's really easy to look at that and think, well, this is kind of really limited. Where's this going to take us? But, just record a meeting that you go to with 4 people and put it into a model like that and start asking it questions about the sentiment of the meeting. What did people think? All that kind of stuff. It's kind of incredible. And I think that people who aren't using AI in that kind of the way, they're not using it. People aren't using it for, interviewing intelligence and analyzing that kind of stuff. They're just going to look like ancient history by this time next year, because the things that it can do are amazing, and we're only still starting on this journey. So, I'm personally fed up with telling people to adopt it and get on with it. It's just like, it's here. Let's embrace this. Let's look at the outputs. Let's really think about how it's going to change what we can do and what's possible.
Maybe the killer app comes from feedback of people actually using it and pushing it to the limits and being like, hey, we need this. That's another angle to look at it from.
Yeah, and I think focusing on how HR recruiting are going to change is much more important than looking at the technology. Now, that's why I think articles like this are great, but leave them to the tech press, leave them to the people building this. Let's focus on what we do and how this technology can make it fundamentally different and can make it amazing, can solve all the problems that we've got, all the problems, but a lot of the issues that we've had with, we've had in the talent space for hundreds of years. The solution is here. So let's use it. So thank you, Rhona. We'll talk to you a little bit later in the show, but I think it is time for our first amazing guest. Hi, Allyn. How you doing?
I am fabulous. That was a fun graphic. I was like, "Oh, look, my name is on a phone." That's very good.
I love your Christmas tree. It's
Thank you.
it's great. Have you ever tried Guinness Zero?
No, I have not. But for more reasons than it being 0. Guinness
Yeah, well, if Guinness isn't your thing, then that's fine.
yeah,
That's fine.
Guinness Zero, I mean, I feel like that's taking all the joy out of it completely. But
Well,
okay.
I thought that until I tasted it, and actually, that's not quite the case.
Okay,
But
okay.
but anyway. So for people who may not, I doubt there's anyone watching who's not seen your videos or read your stuff this year. But just in case, introduce yourself and tell us what you do.
Okay. You know what? This was gonna be my thing this year. I was gonna get better at introducing myself. I'm so bad at this. So my name is Allyn. I'm at SmartRecruiters. I focus on conversations around what is the future of hiring going to look like and how do we support making that happen. So I do a lot of brand stuff. I drive a lot of work around hiring success. And that's what I do. Lots of little tentacles in that space.
No, fantastic stuff. And it's kind of been a very big year for SmartRecruiters, isn't it?
It has been. It's been a huge year for us. It's been actually a super exciting year. It's been a fun year to be a part of it. It's always fun to be part of an organization where there's kind of an influx of energy and innovation and excitement happening. The other thing for people who may not know me or follow me a lot, I get bored very easily, and I'm always hoping things get a little bit more exciting and let's push to the next extreme. What's the next thing we can do? So it's been fun to be involved in an entire organization that's thinking that way right now, which is super cool.
No, absolutely. And we were both on the Purple Acorn prediction show that we recorded a few weeks ago, which I think is running again tomorrow. Actually, it ran on Christmas Eve. But in case you were doing something else on Christmas Eve and you didn't see it, I think it's running again. It's running again tomorrow. So predictions, all those kind of things, kind of been a big topic. And there's a few things I kind of want to ask you in that ilk. But before we do, what's the thing about 2024 that surprised you the most?
That's a great question. What's the thing that surprised me the most? I was listening to Rhona talk a little bit, and I actually think I'm going to connect to something that she said. What surprised me the most was the continued lack of comfort and ability to understand how you can leverage and utilize, particularly these AI tools that are becoming available for you, right? You talked about this a little bit just a few minutes ago as well, but it shocks me how little people are still sitting on the sidelines. And that is amazing to me because I can't imagine how you haven't heard about it by this point or how you haven't figured out you need to figure out what to do.
No, I mean, absolutely. I've probably spent the last few days, in this kind of quiet time, literally just checking every aspect of my business operations to see if I've got, AI properly wired into it. And there were so many areas where I was like, hang on a minute, why am I doing this when this can happen? So, this is serious stuff. It's happening right now. It's not something to kind of to be ignored at all, is it?
It absolutely is not. It's here. It is now fully embedded into most of our experiences. And I think people not thinking about how they are personally engaging with it and adapting to it are setting themselves up for a world where they are shocked and amazed when everything else around them is controlling them through it. I mean, I'm going to be that's kind of that bold about it, right? If you are not in control of it, it will eventually control you. You figure that piece out on your own, everyone.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We'll come back to that in a second. But one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, just in terms of general workplace trends, I know this is something that you've kind of spoken about before, is the whole idea about remote work, hybrid work, where do we work, what do we do? You've got some strong views on that in terms of what's going to happen in the next 12 months, don't you?
I love how you say that, strong views. Of course I have strong views. I do. Listen, I think that we have been letting the tail wag the dog a little bit. And what I mean by that is that we've been letting kind of these corporate conversations around remote work and hybrid work and all of that sort of stuff drive us when the real conversation, the real shift is going to be around autonomy. And autonomy is a bigger question. It is, do you trust me as somebody you have hired to know when, how, and where to get the work done so that I'm contributing the way I need to, right? Autonomy requires a different level of trust and alignment. It's past engagement. But I think that's where we're headed. And the translation of that is, how do companies get out of the conversation of, do I trust you to work remotely, to, do I trust you to work? Right, to do your thing. And if I don't, then why are you here? Like there is that level of conversation I think we're going to pitch into in this next year.
And I think the other aspect of this, which I'm surprised doesn't get talked about as much in the whole, so-and-so says everyone has to go back to the office, the opening up of global talent pools, the accessibility of talent for organizations. We've never had this before, have we?
Well,
the implications around it are huge.
The implications are very huge. I mean, no, we've never had it before. And I will say it is an area that's actually really challenging because how we work, the laws around work, who's available and who can work in different spaces in different countries is very diverse, right?
Yeah.
We operate in kind of even in the U.S. state by state. Now we start talking globally; it's country by country. There's all sorts of laws and legislation around how work happens and how we connect people to work and how people support work. That becomes hugely complex. So this idea of you can hire anybody from anywhere, yes, and right? Do you have the infrastructure in place? Do you have the mechanisms to support it? And do you have a way to manage and mitigate this kind of basically huge taxation problem, which is really what this is at its root?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's almost like if there's debate and conversation to be had,
Mhm.
it kind of should be about that, not
Right.
some
Right.
CEO thinks everyone needs to sit in front of his office or whatever it is. And it's and also I suppose something else that I'm keen to get your thoughts on is there's a whole set of cultural norms around work and around talent acquisition, things that haven't changed in hundreds of years in some case. Everything from, the 5-day work week to you need to send a resume with a cover letter and you have an interview where people ask you questions and all that kind of stuff. And it's kind of part of the fabric of how people think about work. And I think that next year, I mean, we saw some challenges to them this year, but I think next year a lot of those things are going to be turned on their head, and that is gonna freak quite a lot of people out. I think, and it's I just get a sense of that might be what next year's about. What do you think?
I love where you're going with that because I do think that's a lot of what we're going to see, right? Is when you start to remove the boundaries or conditions that kind of force us to do things the way we've always done them, right? And you start to get a few people here and there, they're going to start asking questions like, well, why do we do it that way? Or what would happen if we didn't? Or could we try this? And you're going to get more and more people starting to ask those questions as more freedom starts to enter how I do the work. That's gonna it's gonna be like opening up all the cages to the zoo all at once, and let's see if we can navigate that. That's gonna be super
Yeah, no, absolutely. And even in the world of internet recruitment,
fun.
you have that as well. So I have in a couple of weeks' time, I've done a podcast interview with Jeff Taylor, the guy who started Monster 30 years ago, or
Yeah.
whatever it was, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 30 years ago. And in that, he talks about there were decisions that he made about how CV databases work and how job postings look and what they're called, that he's astounded still kind of move on, still kind of live on today. And it just shows you sometimes how we can just get stuck in very unhelpful ways of doing things.
Well,
And yeah,
yeah, it's typical. We iterate, we don't innovate,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
It is one of my favorite quotes from last year, and I'm just gonna keep pushing it out. We have to start um, instead of building faster horses, build better things, better ways
Mm,
of doing things, right? Going back to that old analogy from, Henry Ford. If you ask people what they want, they're just going to want to have more efficient, quicker, easier ability to do what they do today. If you can free your mind, if we can all have this opportunity, take this new year, take a deep breath and say, just ask yourself a couple of questions every morning. What if I didn't have to do it that way? Like, what would I do? If
mm.
I didn't have to, what would it look like? And I think we'll all be amazed by the types of answers we'll have for ourselves. A great example is we started this last year. I think it's going to be big going into this next year. We have a preconceived notion of who has to be involved in the hiring process.
Mm.
Right? Why do we add 50 million people when the truth of the matter is maybe it's really just about that hiring manager? What does that look like then? If I didn't have to have 10 people involved and 5 different people signing off on a piece of paper and reviewing my interview questions and etc., what would I do? How would I do it differently? Right?
Mm, mm,
Those are the basic questions. If I didn't have to, what would I do?
mm. And what do you think one thing is in HR or talent acquisition that kind of remains unchallenged, but you would either like to challenge or you think is going to be challenged fairly soon?
I feel like you know my answer to that. You just straight up for it.
I don't actually.
You don't know? Right? It's,
No,
Kyle Deganis always tells me I'm always killing everything off. Listen, I think the CV and the resume has had its day.
of course. Yeah.
I think that's a given. And I know that sounds really basic, but it is time now, people. We have new tools to gather structured and unstructured data from people. We have the opportunity to have conversational based inputs. We have AI that can help us assess and understand at the blink of an eye information that we were trying to get off of a sheet of paper that defined a person. I think it's ridiculous that we all think we can stand up and explain and understand what somebody is capable of by looking at a piece of paper. I just don't think that that's realistic anymore. And I think we got to give it up. Now, that's easier said than done, because the minute you remove the CV, you have now basically taken the linchpin out of everything for how our process works today.
Yeah.
All hiring starts with, tell me who you are on a piece of paper. If I remove that, then how do I post a job? What do I ask for in return? How do I collect the information? How do I assess that information? How do I now interview differently if I'm not looking at a piece of paper? Like, those are the big questions, but that will be, once you pull that thread, I think that's the thread, everything starts to unravel and we start to have the opportunity to do it differently.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And it comes back to that, it's not even a cultural norm. As you say, it's that kind of bedrock of the way that lots of things are structured. But it's going to be very interesting to see, to see what happens there. But also, I don't think this is a passive thing. It's not for people to watch and see what happens. It's for people to step up and drive change. I don't think there's ever been a time that I can remember. And I know, it's very difficult for lots of people. There's lots of changes, people losing their jobs, all that kind of stuff. At the same time, though, huge opportunity for people to do things differently and step up and, invent the future. Definitely.
In the midst of big change like this, the people who will survive and the people who will thrive will be the ones who can ask the question, what if I did it differently? And then try and create that opportunity and that experience, right? Because if you're relying on doing it the old way, faster, more efficiently, et cetera, eventually it will be efficiency to the point you're no longer needed. Then what are you going to do? If you haven't pre-thought that out, built the next plan, been part of the new picture, you're not going to be in front of the line for the new opportunities, and then there won't be any. I mean, it's the nicest way I can say that. That sounded
Absolutely.
like people stalking. That's not the way I meant it. But I did mean, you gotta be. This is the time to be on the front line. You can't sit back and wait for somebody else to show you what to do.
Couldn't agree with you more. And on that note, I'll see you again in 2025. Happy New Year in advance. Allyn, it's been great to talk to you. And we're going to move on to our next guest.
Awesome.
Very exciting. Cheers. Thank you. Look who it is. Hi, Mervyn. How are you?
Hello, Matt. I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm really good. So, Mervyn, me and Mervyn have worked together for a long time. We've written a couple of books together, so we know each other. We know each other pretty well. How was your Christmas?
It was good. Excuse me. Well, it was good other than the fact I had a virus, so I wasn't well, hence my voice might break up once or twice. But it was good. It was family-based. It was a lot of people around. And it was nice and relaxing. And it was good.
No, absolutely. And it's kind of like, the UK is very strange at this time of year. It's like this weird time between Christmas and New Year.
Yeah.
The world just goes back to work and does stuff. But if you're in the UK, you kind of sit around and do nothing. It's a very strange one.
I know. I was explaining to somebody yesterday that when I started work, it literally, I worked until 6 p.m. on the 24th of December, and I was back in the office again at 8:30 a.m. on the 27th of December. It's kind of like it's thinking back to those days. It's so different now. The kind of it's that there's no even expectation that it's not even kind of, if you wanted that time off, as some people did because they had families or kids, they had to take it out their annual leave. Now it's just it's turned into virtually a 2-week bank holiday in the UK.
Yeah, I mean, obviously with the exception of people who are delivering essential services and
obviously yes.
Food and all that kind of stuff, but most companies are shut until the 6th of January. It's quite crazy. But anyway, we'll just I forgot to say, just tell us a little bit about what you do for people who may not have seen your great work before.
Okay, I'm an analyst, writer, content creator, co-author of 2 books with Matt. About to start work on a third one. I have a smaller podcast, nothing as great as Matt's, called HR Means Business on HR Happy Hour Network. And a lot of the time is done research, writing, trying to make sense of data, trying to make sense of trends, and what's going on in the marketplace, and communicating that to the wider HR and TA community, and sometimes speaking at events and running workshops and things like that. So it's a lot of different things, shall we say?
No, and you're exposed to kind of a lot of different people and a lot of a lot of really interesting kind of information and opinions and all that sort of stuff. So I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Allyn, which is, what surprised you most about this year?
What? Now I heard you ask her that, and I thought, oh, he's not going to ask me that.
Of course I am.
I think that I suppose along the lines maybe of same. What surprised me most was the amount, the volume, and the amount I hear about AI and how everything's changing, and how the day-to-day lived reality of most of our people in the workplace and most of our job seekers hasn't changed. It's still the same, and I think you were touching on that with Allyn just now. That in the kind of, not bubble, but in the world if you sat on LinkedIn, you would assume that 2024 has seen this huge, unbelievably powerful change across the whole world of work, and how we attract and hire people, and how people are motivated in the work they do. But ultimately, day to day, people are doing it the same way. And as your chat with Allyn just now, that I speak to people, particularly younger people, who've maybe second, third jobbers, who I know tend to know their parents probably as opposed to them. But and they say to me, "Oh, you worked in recruitment for a number of years. What should I do?" And of course, all they're being asked to do is to write a CV and send it in, and they're not being given a job spec. It's kind of like it's somewhere we talk about this fantastic new way of doing things and how we can do things, and the unbelievable opportunities that are available to us to work better, to treat our people better, to make things more seamless and everything. And yet there are still so many pockets of the world of work where things are operating like they did 10, 15 years ago.
No, I completely agree with you, and I think I think the issue is that this kind of always happens when there's sort of new technology kicking around. Kind of gets to recruiting and HR last. In this case, I don't think people kind of really appreciate how quickly this is going to change. Because going right back to the start of the show, we're talking about the killer app with AI and things like that. And I think that people will start, as AI starts being used more in customer service and things like that, and we go from those terrible chatbots that know nothing to, amazing things. I think that, there'll be a very quick kind of realization that this is, that there's some kind of amazing stuff going on. And I think, I just think we can expect a lot of sort of very fast change next year.
I think that's it. I think this will happen quickly, and things will change quickly. And I do hear people talking about things like skills based and kind of it's we're not interested in historical job titles. We're interested in what skills people have got, what knowledge they've got, how it can be adapted, how it can be used. So I do hear people talking about things like that. Whether this communicates itself to job seekers, whether it communicates itself to the people within the workforce, I'm not 100% sure. A lot of these conversations are being had possibly at manager and above level. But yeah, I mean, this will happen, as you say, probably quite quickly. I mean, I would expect, if we'd have had this chat a year ago, I would have expected to kind of be here now. But a year's time, and we'll have to book this in, obviously, for the 30th of December.
Absolutely, yeah.
2025.
I don't think I've ever been
to be different.
I don't think I've ever been quite as forthright about predicting things as I have in the last couple of weeks. So, looking forward to some payback this time next year when, people kind of play these videos back. Changing tack slightly. So one of the things that you've done this year that's been really great is, you're a kind of a regular on the HR morning show, another Purple Acorn production.
Yes.
And you look at generational things quite a lot, Gen Z and all the workforce and all this sort of stuff. And, so many articles about, Gen Z is killing this and killing that and all that kind of stuff. I saw an article, I think it was in the Times. I don't know why I was reading the Times, but over Christmas. I think it was supposed to be a spoof, but it was kind of like, this Gen Z is killing Christmas traditions and all this sort of stuff. So what are your kind of observations? Because, what's going on with the kind of different generations in the workforce at the moment? Because, I can remember back to, when we were a lot younger and it was, Gen X, they're all slackers. They don't like work. What's going on? They've changed everything. Is it just kind of more of that? Or are things really shifting?
Well, thank you for flagging up the fact that I have another Purple Acorn show. Yes, I speak with Danielle Farage on a regular basis, where we it's called From X to Z. If you watch the Tuesday show, where we discuss workplace topics from the perspectives of different generations. One of the points that I often make to her is that where we're talking at Gen Z and everything's a bit different, is if I think back to when I started work, it was no different. I started off as a trainee accountant. I'm not going to bore people. Don't switch off. But I started at a time when the accountancy profession in the UK had kind of modernized itself, not in any way we'd understand now, but it had modernized itself in a certain way. And I came in having done what they called a foundation course for 9 months. So I normally, you joined as a trainee accountant, you were given bank statements to tick off for your first year, and that was kind of it. Whereas I had been learnt about audits and legal requirements, and that's what I wanted to do from day one. And I was told, no, just tick off that bank statement. That's what you do. You're a trainee. So I think that it's always been there. But I think that there was an interesting article I wrote just before Christmas, but it came from some research that I found initially through the FT and stuff about, have Gen Z got it harder? And a lot of that is, the tougher climb to financial independence. I think the important thing to remember is that most of us of a certain vintage, we structure work was the structure on which we built our lives. The first time we ever had money to go out and spend on our social lives, and you meet someone, you date someone, you begin to build a life, you settle down, you maybe start saving to buy a property. Within the West, for so many of today's Gen Z, that just isn't there. It's the bank of mum and dad that's going to do most of that for them at some stage. And so if you take away the structures of, like, you learn more, you do more, you go for the next promotion, you work your way up, and that leads you to doing more with your life, traveling more, doing more holidays, starting a family, all those things. If you take that away, what's left is the experience, basically. What is the work you're doing? How are you doing it? Does it motivate you? Do you enjoy it? And yes, I accept there are many people who have to go out and do not very interesting jobs because they need to put food on the table for themselves, for family members, maybe. But it's once you take away that structure and you take away any semblance of financial independence, then you're focused a lot more on what people are doing and how they're doing it. And, people can say, I'm not enjoying this. And, I don't want to be treated like this. Whereas, we were told there's that quaint old English expression, put up and shut up, which is basically, you just get your head down and do it. Yes, because that's how we do it. Whereas now we have a generation who are educated to a high level and have aspirations that are difficult to match. And therefore, it's the way they're treated, it's the quality of what they do, and it's are they interested in what they do? And is there something they could be more interested in? So I think that I suppose the key things were, it's difficult to get to financial independence. Actually being able to start the right step on the career ladder and develop a career is difficult now. Barriers to entry, barriers to supporting that growth. And of course, a lot of this now is we have a lot more understanding around the impact on mental health, how people feel, their self-perceptions, particularly if they can see themselves not getting ahead. And ultimately, it's kind of, it's supporting everybody. So it's businesses need to offer that kind of level of support and recognition to everybody in the organization. But I suppose for some people, if they are in more fulfilling positions because they're more senior or they've got more experience or are doing more interesting work, it's finding a way to keep, I suppose, Gen Z interested, to actually give them some kind of agency in what they do and how they do it. Which is why you see so many of them going off wanting to start their own little businesses, wanting to start their own little side hustles, because again, they have an understanding of how they could make that work for themselves.
Yeah, and I think it kind of goes back to what I was saying with Allyn about the cultural norms about how we talk about work.
Mm.
A lot of them don't exist anymore. This kind of long-term incentive, either a great retirement or a great career. That's actually not really been the case for quite some time now. But the discourse hasn't really moved on. It doesn't reflect the reality of what work is like now.
Yeah.
So yeah, really interesting. Just before we wrap up, just give us some, about generations or work or whatever it is. Just give us some quick thoughts about, 2025. What can we expect? What are you looking forward to? What are your predictions?
I'm looking forward to Arsenal Football Club winning a trophy. No, that's not what you wanted from them. I thought you might ask me this. I made a few notes
Did you?
just before the show. I mean, AI is going to be everywhere. So AI automating. I think we're going to see an escalation in the automation of very routine thing. You were talking about customer service earlier. I've even seen it on the run up to Christmas, helping friends, relatives who maybe don't have the technological understanding I have, understand how they can now do these things without having to physically go to places and go shopping, and it's kind of taking over every area of our lives. I think that you were talking to Allyn before about kind of hybrid and remote, or was it Rhona? Sorry, I was listening to the whole show, and I think that's obviously going to go on. But I think that there is more. Hopefully, there'll be more understanding. Firstly, that it's a very noisy discussion about remote, flexible, hybrid, asynchronous working. But for something like 62% of the workforce, it's not a, it doesn't matter because they do jobs that have fixed locations, whether it's things like healthcare, construction, and things like that. Having said that, it's the flexibility that's important. I think that's going to be the key thing for the entire workforce, is the flexibility. Okay, I have to be in a certain location. I'm a auxiliary nurse. I have to be in a hospital, but it's my schedules. I can have input into how flexibly I work and when and where, and then allowing people to leverage that. And I think that we're going to begin to see, because this half-life of a skill is kind of come down into, well, almost days at the moment, I think, isn't it? Or weeks. We're going to see people beginning to embrace this constant upskilling, reskilling, and understanding that they need constant, it's not just, oh, well, I've mastered that now, because, there's going to be version 2.7 coming in next week, which you don't know anything about yet.
No, absolutely. Mervyn, thank you very much. Best wishes for the new year. Are you going to wish Arsenal best wishes for the new year? Because my football club is so far behind them in the Premiership, it doesn't matter. But great to talk to you. Speak to you next year. And at that point, we're going to trending or ending. Hey, Rhona, welcome back.
Hey.
Right, let's talk about it. The career prenup.
So, candidates are now negotiating their severance package when they get an offer. And I started seeing this around like mid to late 2022. It really picked up in 2023. And from my anecdotal experience, I was seeing it from candidates who had been laid off multiple times. That's why I think it's really a response to what's happening as far as the job market. It's not really something new per se. We've been for many years having severance conversations have been standard at like the executive level, right? Every
Yeah.
executive knows and it has in their contract like how much they're going to get and what are their terms and all of that. What's really new is that we're seeing it at every level. And that's why I was like, this is really a response to what's happening. Candidates who have been laid off multiple times or who have heard about the layoffs, or even I worked at a company who had layoffs but was still hiring people because that happens. And those were the questions are like, okay, great. Thank you for this offer. What does severance look like? The pushback that I was getting and that a lot of people get is, well, we only do this for executives. And the questions from candidates were like, but why? Right? They have the same risk as an executive. And I really, it doesn't have to be complicated. I've had 2 career prenups throughout my career. One, it's not complicated. It was just part of the offer, right? It was a clause in the offer. One company said, look, we want 30 days notice from you if you leave. We'll do the same. And if we lay you off, you don't have to work the 30 days. We'll just pay you 30 days. So I knew going in that if I were to get laid off, I would get paid 30 days and that was it. And I got laid off from that company. It happened a couple of years down the line. And I knew exactly there was no discussions to be had because we had spoken about that since the beginning. Another company had in their offer also just a simple clause in their offer saying, we don't do severance. That's it. I mean, looking back, it was a red flag.
Yeah.
I just needed money. They just needed someone. So it worked out great for us. But for a lot of people there, you could see it was just a different vibe. There was a lot of people who left without notice, me included. It's just the way you treated that company was different because they were telling you up front, look, we don't care. If we have to lay you off, you're not getting a single penny from us. No questions asked. So really, I think we should look at it as a chance to build trust early, but not only look at it for candidates, right? It reduces long-term risk, right? You have clear exit terms. So there's no room for like lawsuits and things like there's always room for lawsuits, but the risk is reduced if people know upfront how things are going to end, right? It shows goodwill, right? It signals that your company values fairness and stability, and it shows confidence, right? Because the message that's out there with all of these layoffs that have been happening these couple of years are companies don't care about you. The second they make a penny less than what they were expecting, you're gone, all of that. So it shows confidence. Of course, there are complexities. We could sit here and talk about it back and forth all day, but I really think there's more good than bad to this. And I really think it's something we should get ahead of and be proactive about. What are your thoughts, Matt?
Yeah, a couple of things. I suppose to start with, I mean, I completely agree with you. I think it's not even about rebalancing the employer-employee relationship. It's about honesty about what the world is like and what the situation is like. And people have been through some horrendous things in the last couple of years when it comes to layoffs and not getting what they're expecting or not knowing what that would look like. And this is just if work is going to continue in this vein, and it looks like it is, we talk about gig work, we talk about fractional work, we talk about talent marketplaces. This makes perfect sense. And it's just putting into the words or written words or whatever it is, something that's already there. I think that's the sort of, that's my kind of first thought on it. My second thought is obviously there is a geographical variance here because in Europe, a lot of this is enshrined in law. Anyway, so there are certain sort of legal aspects to it, but at the same time there are things that aren't, and there are lots of different types of circumstances, and also I think there has to be an amount of a flexibility within this because employers might not always, you don't always know what the situation's going to be like, and I'm getting into the complexities of it. So I think that's that's kind of a part of it. But also I think I think that, beyond the kind of the basics, I think we kind of step back and look at, what's always happened in the top level executive world, where people are effectively, agreeing their golden goodbye before they've even gone. And a lot of that is about, risk that they take in moving jobs, and the short tenure that they might have, and that's the case for everyone now. The risks from moving from a what might seem a stable job to something that isn't, are kind of real. And I think people, if they've not experienced that themselves, they'll know people who have. So again, I think it's kind of inevitable. I think that lots of employers would sort of kick back against it, but I kind of agree. I agree with you. I think it's something that is kind of really important, important part of kind of rebalancing that sort of relationship. I mean, is this a widespread thing? Have you seen much of this happening in practice?
I wouldn't call it widespread. I think it's something that's we're going to see more of, because again, like everything with candidates, as people start talking about it, and they'll start being like, oh, wait, I remember tweeting back in like 2020, you guys know you can negotiate your severance, right? I just tweeted that. I got so many DMs and so many people asking. So the more people talk about this, and people are talking about it online, the more people talk about this, the more people will start doing it. It's like, oh, wait, I didn't know I could do that. Why not?
Yeah, and again, I mean, this has come up in every part of the show tonight. This whole thing about cultural norms, about how people think about work, and how it's supposed to work, and it hasn't worked like that for a very long time. But change is kind of happening fast. So I think it's just a lot of it is just having a real kind of honest look about the way things really work, and the way things, are going to change and work in the future. And there will be a lot of job displacement because of things like AI. There'll be jobs created too, and opportunities and things like that. But it's kind of a conversation that's not going to go away, is it?
It's absolutely not. And like everything we've talked about throughout the show, just how everything's changing, gig work, fractional, all of these people have these things, especially fractional, or should, in their contracts, right? So it's going to be normalized as well for direct employees, I think. I really think companies who are going to win are the ones who are going to be proactive about this. And the truth is, you probably already know what your severance looks like. Let's be honest. You already know kind of like what you would offer if that were the situation, just to let people know up front.
No, absolutely. And just to kind of ask you like an extra question, while you're here, 2025 on Wednesday, which I've said about 10 times so far. What are your sort of big trending or ending things for 2025? What do you think we're going to be talking about in the coming months?
I think we're going to be talking a lot more about candidate focused hiring. I wish I would have saved it, but I saw a report about how terribly we've done when it comes to candidate experience, candidate resentment. So even though the market is flooded with candidates, we're going to be forced to really think about this. And we're also going to be forced to be strategic, like we were talking at the beginning. The days of like, oh, this is nice to have stuff, like, no, let's be strategic. Let's align to what the company goals are as a people function, as a TA function. That's what we're going to be talking about a lot. And of course, AI, and how AI is going to help us do all of these manual, repetitive things that we've been doing, that we've been seen as the administrative people. AI can do it now. So if you really want to keep your job, continue to be relevant, and see our function continue to live on, it has to fundamentally change how we do it.
No, absolutely. One of the on our prediction show, one of my accountable predictions was next year is the year we stop talking about AI, because it'll just be there, and it's talking about how it drives change and all that kind of stuff. So Rhona, thank you very much. Looking forward to talking to you next year. as in next Monday. An absolute pleasure. An absolute pleasure to talk to you. So that's us very near at the end of the show. So thank you very much for listening. Hoping to see you all again. See you all again next week. Lots and lots of things always on Purple Acorn. There's no morning shows normally on Tuesdays. There's no morning show no morning show tomorrow, but we're rerunning the predictions thing. There's Hire Her, the Talent Collective podcast, which is on Wednesdays. My First Job with Mike Wood on Thursdays. From the Desk with Jada Montemarano on Fridays. Lots and lots of stuff. So head over to purpleacorn.io to find out more. You can find this show and all the other shows as a podcast wherever you get your podcasts. I'd like to take the opportunity to wish you a very happy 2025. I think it's, as we've said, for the whole show, it's going to be a really, really interesting one. So this is me, Matt Alder, clocking out for 2024. See you next year.